All right, changing guitar strings. Obviously you'll need your guitar, you'll need a new pack of strings, you won't need, but what will be very beneficial to you is to have a string winder tool like this. It shouldn't cost more than a few dollars. It definitely makes the taking off and tuning up of strings a lot faster. If you don't have this, you can still do it, it just takes a little longer. To cut strings, I recommend a toe clipper. I use a toe clipper because it more precisely and carefully cuts the strings, especially by the bridge, but also at the headstock, so that you don't accidentally gouge the guitar. I have purchased this just for guitar string changing. You can also use a needle nose pliers. Sometimes you need to pull on the strings here, maybe at the top, and you just don't have as much pinching power as one of these, so you can use this if needed. I also have this on hand for changing acoustic and electric guitar strings, as the blade portion right here at the base of the pliers is really good for cutting those strings. I don't recommend using this on electric guitar strings, as it takes a lot longer, a lot more force to cut them, and the metal strings leave little grooves in the blades here, rendering this useless after a while. I also recommend getting a piece of very thin plastic. This is actually made by a company called Klingon. It's designed for classical guitars, and it sticks onto the guitar to kind of protect it wherever you put it from nails hitting it or strings. And so this is a little piece of plastic that I keep on hand just for string changing. I place it right here so that when I'm messing with the knotting, or when the strings are coming out, anything like that, the strings don't accidentally hit the soundboard. People sometimes call it string burn, and you just don't want that. It leaves little gouges on the strings on the guitar permanently. It just doesn't look good. After a while, it can really start to affect your guitar. So those are the supplies. Now, the strings of the classical guitar are tied in a special way to these white or silver or black tubes right here. I will show you how to do that in this video, at least how I do it. There are several techniques. I like mine, so I'll show you mine. But basically what I like to do is take off 3 sets of strings at a time, these 3 strings and then these strings, or vice versa. I don't like to take all 6 strings off at the same time for 2 reasons. One, certain guitar builders think that since the guitar is designed to have the tension of all 6 strings on them, to take all 6 off at the same time may mess with the internal bracing of the guitar, may not be good for it if you do that over and over again. The second reason is I actually like to keep these 3 on so that I can tune to them when I'm changing the other 3. In other words, I'll take these 3 off, I'll put the new set of 3 back on, and then I'll use these 3 strings which haven't been touched and just kind of keep them there so that I can tune these ones to those. And then once these are in tune, I'll take these off and do the same thing to these. Although I will say that by the time that you're tuning these strings to those, these have already gone a little flat. So you can use an electronic tuner or A440 or whatever works for you to get it in tune. At the bottom here, you have another sort of challenge, which is to be able to tie the strings onto the bridge in a special way. As you can see, this guitar has 12 holes. It was designed to have 12 holes. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all the way up to 12. A lot of older guitars or more basic guitars just have 6 holes, and that's fine. If you have 12 holes, you'll tie the string in this fashion. If you have 6, you'll tie it like that, and I'll show you how to do both in this video. Here's a quick tip. If you're starting to detune the strings, one nice thing to do is to play a string to make sure you're turning in the right direction. Sometimes people might be thinking they're going one direction, but then if you played the string, you can hear the string going sharp, getting higher. And if you kept doing that, you might snap the string. So I'll start with these bass strings, and I'll use the string winder to take them down. All right, I've taken these 3 bass strings off, but I haven't taken them out of the bridge here because I wanted to show you some techniques on how to do that. First, you want to loosen up the knottage, the knotting that has been done here by pushing the slack through like that a bit. And they're wound strings, so they catch on the wood, so you have to get kind of close to push in, otherwise it might go like that. And then just kind of find your way to loosening all that up. What's nice to do is just to slowly and carefully remove them, and then slowly pull them out like that. You can see that right here they're pretty curved, and the metal might be so curved that it makes it hard to pull through the hole. Sometimes I just snip that end off and it comes out more easily. Now, the reason I did that very slowly was because this is wood and this is metal, and these windings on these strings can get very hot when you're pulling them fast, and it can actually make the hole of the bridge bigger. So you can see here these holes here. So you don't want to burn the holes any bigger than they are right now, because that could be some serious long-term problem that you don't want to deal with. You have to send it to a guitar builder, they have to repair it. It's just bad news. So pull it out, pull this string out of the bridge very slowly, and you should be good to go. Another thing I like to do is to take just a polished cloth and kind of polish underneath here, removing dust that may have accumulated on the bridge, under the strings, that kind of thing. You can get the fretboard a little bit too, and just kind of clean it up. So let's get some strings on. Get your pack of strings. What usually happens when you open it up is it'll show you which strings go with what. You may think that's not a big deal, but after dealing with strings a while and starting to look at them, you can see that they are, like especially the trebles, they look pretty similar. So they've labeled them in some way that make it easier for you to keep everything straight. So I'll start with the 6th string, the bottom E string. This was the sticker side, you pull that off. And then on the other side, you can see that the string winding kind of changes a little bit. Let's see if I can. So it's wound very tightly here and then loosely at the end of that string. And the reason that is so that you can bend it more easily when you're tying it. And this is how I tie the bass string. This is how you would do it if you had a 6-hole bridge. You would send it through to the best of your ability. And then you would, I'm trying to do this from like the perspective of you looking down at your guitar. So following that, you would push it away from you like this, and around you have a loop. You have like a hole here, and then you would want to get that string through that hole, and then push this part back down here so that when you tighten it, the string is behind the bridge like that. The slack went to sit in the back here on the back side of this bridge. The reason I like to do this is so that, especially with the treble strings, it doesn't slip. If you had done it like this, not so much on the 6th string, but on the treble strings being so slick, there is a very strong chance that that string under tension would eventually slide out and then just come off of the tie block. This is called the tie block. So once again, you send the string through, string away from you, go under the rest of the string. You've made a little hole, put that string through the hole, and then tighten, but then push the little bit of slack there toward the back, have it kind of guiding it so that it sits in the back. It may take a little bit of practice to get good at this little part. I've been doing it for a long time, so it may look easy at first, but you'll get there. This is very important technique though. All right, this is if you have a 12-hole system. You would send it through the hole that's further away from you, and then send it through the hole that's closer to you. There are like, 6 pairs of holes. And then you would take the string, and you can see it's like that. But instead of doing that, you would put it through the string like that, and then tighten. And what's nice about this is that no matter what, that is going to be sitting in behind here. And we have all this slack, and that's okay for now. Notice I have my protection there that's going to make it easier to, obviously protect the guitar. As you tighten up, that might slip a little bit, especially on the treble strings. So I don't think you should cut anything until you get to the very end and all the strings have been strung to pitch and stretched a little bit, which we will get to in just a second. All right, so now we're going to take that bass string and tie it to the top here. This is what you should do for bass strings, not for treble strings. I'll show you what to do for treble strings in just a second. First, turn the tuner so that the hole is straight down. Makes it easier to do this. Just send it through. Now take the slack and bring it up above the tuner like that. So you went down, and then you're going above the tuner like that. Then, again, push the string away from you, go under the string, and tighten. And you can kind of feed in the slack and tighten it. And what you'll do at this point is you'll start to tighten the string. And you can even send this string behind here, because what happens is once you tighten it, that thing that you looped around will catch and it'll hold that bass string down. So this is different than if you have an acoustic guitar or an electric guitar where you wrap it around the tuner a couple times and feed it through the hole. If you have locking tuners, even easier. So you have to kind of come up with a little bit of a knot. And that's the kind of knot that I like to do for classical guitar. Again, everyone does it differently. That's my style. Once you start to tune it up, I like to guide the string with a free hand or finger in such a way that the windings stay close to each other. You can see how I've pushed those two windings close to each other. Why do I do that? Because if you don't, these strings can get close to the side of the guitar, and the more you tighten the string, the more it's going to push against that body, that part of the guitar, and that friction will cause a certain amount of tension as you're trying to tune it, and it could A, make it very difficult to actually turn the tuner, and B, you could damage the side of the guitar. So keep it nice and tight. And now this is the point where I start to listen to the other strings. I could also use a string winder. Get this out of the way. Like that. Another trick is the slack that was run over the first time. Notice how it didn't run over that one. I like to have it run over every single time. It's hard for me to do it from this position, but it just kind of locks the string in even more. Not super crucial, but that is how that is done. I'm not going to go through the 4th and the 5th strings because it's going to be the same situation, but I will say that the strings get thinner, and that just makes it easier to, you know, tie and loop and that kind of thing around both the basses, both the bridge and the headstock. All right, I have put all 3 bass strings on. You can pull these out a little bit. Let me do this last one so you can see it better. Just pull it out to make it easier to cut, again, with the toenail clippers. Don't cut your toe off. What I do like to do before that, though, is to go to the 12th fret, which is the center of the string, and pull on it a little bit. And I'm just pulling straight up to give you a perspective. It's no more than about that much, which is, you know, it's about an inch or 2, inch and a half maybe. And what I'm doing is I'm stretching those bass strings, kind of breaking them in. They were under no tension, now they're under a ton of tension. So they were at pitch, and now you can hear. So they've gone flat a little bit. Back to the part here, I like to cut them about here. That way there's a little bit of slack at the end. I also like to make sure that the bit that is left is not pushing against the guitar. Not for damaging the instrument, but sometimes bass strings or even treble strings can buzz against the soundboard, causing much irritation for the player. So you cut them off. Notice how carefully I can just very carefully just cut that, and then just kind of have them pointed up and away from everything, and you should be good to go. You can do the same thing for the treble, the headstock. So I'll move this down a little bit, and you can see once again, you'll just get somewhat close to the end here, but not too close. There might be a little bit of slippage, and you don't want it to slip so much that, you know, it comes off. These strings are under tension, and they could hit you in the face or something, some other part of your body or something near you. So always good to be safe like that. Next, I've taken the 3 treble strings off, the top part at least, the headstock. And just to show you that, you know, down here you would do a similar thing. Sometimes it's not so easy to just push the string through to slacken it, so I like to grab it right here and pull on it until it comes out a little bit. You can see that happening there, or on this one. One hack is to cut the strings right here. To make the treble strings a little bit more easy to deal with. So now all I have to do is, you know, for this top string, pull it here, and it's ready to be pulled out. Try to do the path of least resistance, and so if you see a particularly knotty part like on this side, don't send that through. Instead, pull from the other side. It comes right out. Again, this will protect your guitar. This particular string, this second string, happened to have been tied as if I had a 6-hole tie block. And so what I like to do for this version is to take this part here, this knot, push it forward, and then that releases the string. And then just like the others, you pull from there and you're good to go. Real quick, these treble strings are all labeled. You can see it says, you know, the letter name on one side and the number on the other. Don't take these off all at once. I don't recommend doing that because it might be hard to keep them straight, and you might accidentally put the third string where the first is supposed to be, or vice versa, or, you know. So I like to take those stickers off one at a time. Another thing I'll say is that I like to work from the 6th string to the 5th to the 4th, and then the 1st string to the 2nd to the 3rd. And the main reason is not so much for down here, but up here, it makes it easier to tie. Starting on the 6th string with these other two gone, it's easy to make that knot and then make this knot and then make this knot. Whereas if I started on the 4th string, I'd have to fit under this string, and it just makes it tedious to try to do that. And the same goes for the top. So I do the 1st string, the 2nd string, and then the 3rd. So 6, 5, 4, 1, 2, 3, from the outside in. All right, this is where things get a little bit more complicated. I'm going to start with the 1st string. I'm going to take that sticker off. Don't drop the string, hold on to it. That sticker side usually has a little bit of residue on it, so I like to use that side for tying onto the headstock, and take the smoother side and tie it to the tie block so no residue can get on the tie block. All right, first I'm going to send this through the very top hole, and I'm going to treat this as if I were tying a 6-hole tie block. So this is what happens. First, you send it through like that. Then you're going to put it around just like you did with the bass strings. Remember that? This time, though, is where it changes. You're going to go through the hole, but instead of going through the hole one time, you're going to go through 4 times for the treble, the top string, and 3 times with the 2nd and 3rd string. So let me show you that. So here we are. You make that loop, send it through the hole, and then bring that string around, put it through the hole again, and then again, and 4 times. Some would say this is like a fisherman's knot, but you can see that string has been looped around that hole 4 times. Then you'll tighten, and what you should get is that situation right there, where just like the bass string, there it is, the slack is sitting now behind the tie block, not on the top, and you got the rest of the string coming out here. Again, if you have that string coming up here, not behind the tie block, like that, you are likely to, that string can slip and that string could come off. All right, so slightly different if you have a 12-hole tie block, but you'll send it through the hole that's further away from you. Then you'll send it through the secondary hole, loop around, and then here is where you send it through 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then pull. Sometimes these knots are a little, they just move around a little bit, so you just have to kind of guide it pulling on this side and pulling on this side and working with it until you see that everything is behind that tie block. That's one of the most important things, making sure that it sits there behind. And you can pull on this to kind of make sure that happens. There's still going to be slippage. Do you see how that is moving? So keep about this much slack on the string. You don't want to have too much slack because then you won't be able to tie it to the head, but you know, about a couple inches. All right, tying to the headstock is a little bit more complicated than the bass strings were. So to start with the first string, you'll send it through the hole, just like we did before. But this time, instead of going over the tuner, you're going to go under the tuner. Why? I'll tell you in a minute. So go under the tuner in such a way that the string is away from you, the part that you're about, you know, the slack part, the end of the string. And so you have the string that is the part of the string that's going down the fretboard, then you have the other part in your hand. Make a little hole there and send the string through there. Essentially, you're tying a knot there. And then pull on that. And then what you'll do is you'll start to tighten the string. I'm pulling back like this, and there's that little knot that you can see. It'll start to move. It keeps on moving, but it doesn't keep on moving. It eventually sits. Notice how I just had it sit right in that hole. And if you're able to do that, you have set it perfectly, and you'll just keep on turning. Now, the string will come back around, and just like the bass strings, I like to have the slack run over by the string, so I kind of guide it. See how it's about to get run over, and then that kind of further holds the string down, preventing slippage. And you may find yourself doing that a few times. This knot that I just did, though, is crucial so that you don't have to wind the string around like 5 or 6 or 7 times, which I've seen on many other people's guitars. It also prevents slipping, so you won't have to tune your guitar as much. Treble strings on classical strings are just they're just plastic, and so they stretch quite a bit. So anything that you can do to further hold them down, the better, so that you can spend more time playing and less time tuning. So you can see how many times I've turned this, and you can see how the string winder helps, but let's see where I'm at. Nowhere near pitch. Let's grab that string winder. And one nice thing that I'll remind you of is to guide the string, making it nice and tight, make the windings really close together, so that just like on the bass side, these trebles don't grind up against the body of the guitar. It's less of a concern for the trebles because they're so thin and plastic, but it's still a concern. You can see how it's crazy how much I have to tune this compared to like an acoustic or an electric guitar. Electric guitar, the string would have broken by now, but I've gone around here 3 or 4 times. But that's how that is done. So I'm not going to show you the second and third string, just like I didn't show you the other bass strings, but I'll just remind you to make sure that you keep the stickers on until the very last second, taking them off one by one. And also, as you tune the treble strings, just know that they will go way out of tune compared to the bass strings, so don't be alarmed, and just make sure that, you know, they'll eventually get there. Another thing I forgot to do is you know, polished underneath where the trebles were as well. So you can take care of that as well if you like. Actually, here I'll show you one, I'll explain one thing. You may recall that I said that I recommend that you tie the treble strings in such a way that the top string is looped around 4 times, but the second and third string 3 times. The reason for that is these second and third strings are so much thicker than the first, and so you don't generally need to do it 4 times. The first string, depending on the brand, it's just a good thing to tie it 4 times. But for this thick old third string, 1, 2, 3 should be all you need. And just like the bass strings, I like to go to the 12th fret of the trebles and pull on them as well. You'll find that they are even more flexible than the bass strings because they're not wrapped in metal. Word to the wise, be mindful of these bits of slack. You might see them moving inward, like as you're pulling on the string. You may want to double check the knots and see that they're secure. And another thing is the strings will go way more out of tune when you stretch them on the trebles compared to the basses. Again, because they're not, you know, fortified, if you will, with the wrapped metal, just the plastic there. And once the treble strings have been thoroughly stretched, you can now cut off the slack. Again, highly recommend the toenail clipper. And I also recommend pulling the string away. Keep a little bit of slack, as I mentioned before, just in case there's more slippage. So you can see if I were using a pliers here, there's a risk that I might accidentally gouge the body of the guitar. It's just a more, you know, relatively speaking, barbaric tool compared to do this. It's just snip, 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 much easier. All right, for the trebles here, you can cut these off. You can totally cut these off. Keep a little bit of slack, as I mentioned before. But what I like to do is actually take the string and make a little loop here, and then maybe another one just to make sure it holds. Not tie it tight, but just kind of keep it there like that, because there are some people, myself included, who like to take advantage of that slack. There's a way in which you can take the string off, slide it down, and tie the string back up again, and this slack will be used, you know, more around the tuner rather than waiting out here. When you shift the strings down, the area that was over the sound hole is now over where you normally play, and so it kind of feels and sounds like a brand new string. And you can do that with treble strings. So I like to do that with these treble strings. Just make that little loop. And I do the loop instead of just letting the strings be, because it just keeps them out of the way when I'm trying to access the tuners to tune. And it also looks a little cleaner on stage. So you can see, I keep these loops behind so that from the front you don't see them. But if you wanted to cut them off, you can cut them off, and you should be good to go. It's at this point I will carefully take off the protector. Don't need to worry about that anymore. You could also give your guitar a good polish at this time. It's always nice to kind of wipe down the guitar of any oils or residue that has been left from you, the player. You should be ready to go. A final tip that I'll say is that these strings are frustratingly going to go out of tune a lot. They are plastic strings. So one thing I like to do is, you know, make the guitar in tune when I've just restrung them, and then I'll give the tuners a good crank, sharp, like one turn, not all the way around, but just like make it a little sharp so that the next time I take the guitar out of the case, it's a little less out of tune. But generally speaking, just get accustomed to the fact that it's going to be something to tune pretty much every time you take it out of the case, especially when you put new strings on. But there's nothing like a new set of strings, especially the basses, so vibrant and louder and resonant, and the treble strings are so smooth, your tone's going to be better, and so it's definitely worth the time and the effort and the money. Good luck.